I've tried to record this video about 3 times now. Here I am for try number 3. Well, I don't want to go into a whole long in-depth explanation about what MS is, because those of you that would have searched this would probably already know, and those of you that are watching right now that don't know, I guess I can give you a little bit. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is a autoimmune condition that affects a large number of people in North America and around the world, but the greatest numbers are in North America specifically. So there's an estimated 2.3 million people worldwide living with MS today. I'm not sure what the exact numbers are for the States alone and Canada alone, but 2.3 million worldwide is a pretty large number. I tend to get a little bit anxious whenever I'm speaking about this. To start off with, my diagnosis happened in 2012. Can't believe that's right. That's like 8 years. It's been 8 years since I've been diagnosed, but it still feels like it happened yesterday. So I was diagnosed at 26. I went into the hospital with only numbness in my left hand. And when I got there, I went through a bunch of testing. So I need to calm down, de-stress. I can feel the anxiety and the pressure and the tension kind of just building up slowly as I'm talking about it. And it's just because it was such a traumatic experience for me. And I know that I haven't fully dealt with all of it yet. When you go through something traumatic in life, it tends to stick with you no matter how much you think you've gotten over it or how much time has passed. It kind of tends to surface here and there, and as I'm telling the story, I'm kind of reliving it. Initially, showed up to the hospital because I had lost feeling in my left hand, and it really just felt like I had slept on top of my hand and it was sleeping. So at first, I didn't take it seriously, and after about an hour to almost 2 hours of it still being numb, I decided to go to the hospital with my family. They checked me out, did a bunch of tests, did MRIs, CAT scans, CTs, all those things, and they kept coming back with nothing. But while I was waiting for the 2 to 3 hours while I was in emergency, I was getting worse. I went from my hand being numb to me kind of losing my strength, and they ended up doing like the stroke test where they check your speech, they check your eyesight, they check your strength. So you're doing like grip tests every few hours. The doctor would come back, check my strength, speak to me, see how my speech was, see how my eyes were moving, all these kinds of things. Every time he came back, there was a different issue. It went from a numb hand to my eye that wasn't fully cooperating. It was on my left eye. So every time they would test me, they would come in and say, lift your arm up like this. So I would do it. It was my left arm. I would do it. They could see a strength decrease. And when I think I'm lifting like up here, I was probably lifting like down here, you know, and he could obviously tell that it was harder for me to lift my arm. So that was one thing. I went to get up about 2 hours into the emergency room to use the washroom, and I struggled to walk. I stumbled quite a bit. I remember the doctor running down the hallway telling me that I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself anymore, and they're still trying to see what's going on with me because it just didn't make sense, and they were nervous because it was going from a numb hand to a weak arm to problems with my left eye to not being able to walk properly. By this time, the doctors are kind of freaking out, so then I start freaking out because I'm like, you guys are supposed to know what's going on. Prior to MS, at 26 years old, I was healthy my entire life, never broke a bone, never gotten sick, except for the stomach flu one time, which I will, we don't want to talk about that. Besides that, I was healthy as a horse. Like, there was nothing wrong with me. I was fairly active. I mean, I would ride my bike almost everywhere. I would walk everywhere. My friends used to be like, you know, you can take the bus, right? You know, you can drive, right? But I just wanted to walk for some reason. I just loved walking. I loved walking. I loved running. I did track and field as a kid. Just all of these things. So it just didn't make sense to me in my mind the entire time at the hospital. I kept thinking, there's nothing wrong with me and I gotta go to work. So can you fix me so I can leave? Because my boss is not gonna be happy about this. So yeah. The doctors are testing, they're coming back with MRI scans and CTs, and it's showing absolutely nothing until they did an MRI with contrast. And an MRI with contrast is basically where they inject you with a dye so that certain parts of your brain will light up on the MRI image when they're trying to see what's going on. They did an MRI with contrast, they came back, they told me that I had a tumor because all they could see was this big, huge splotch on my brain. And I'm gonna insert a picture right here so you guys can kind of see what the picture looked like to them at the time. Although I only have the MRI scan from when it started to shrink. So The picture you're gonna see right here is not the picture when I was at my worst. It's when I started to recover and get better. The neurologist comes back into the room and they're telling me that they want to do a biopsy of my brain because they think that I have a tumor. And because I'm still thinking there's nothing wrong with me, I'm like, okay, do it. I don't know what a biopsy is. Just do it so I can get out of here, you know? But yeah, my mom had kind of like pulled me to the side and said, are you crazy? They're going to take a piece of your brain out and analyze it. You don't want that. So after that, they admitted me to the hospital and I ended up staying. That was October. I'm never going to forget the date. It was October 8th of 2012. I stayed in the hospital from October 8th to January 26th, I want to say. Yeah, so I was in the hospital for 4 months, but technically the last month I was in rehab. So it's still a hospital, but it's an in-hospital rehab center. At this time, I was still pretty numb. I was still kind of groggy. My vision was a tiny bit blurry. My voice was still fine. So I'm admitted. I go to bed and I remember waking up the next morning in hospital, and this is when shit got real for me. The doctor comes in and he's like, okay, we're gonna do a test. And he's standing with my mom at the time. And he had, you know when you watch those movies on TV and someone's paralyzed and the doctor comes in with like a blunt object and runs it up on the bottom of their foot and there's no reaction? We've all seen that dramatic scene somewhere in some movie, some TV show somewhere. This was real life, sis. This happened to me. I'm lying in bed. He comes in. He's poking my foot. He's tapping it. He's running things up and down, asking me what part of my body he's touching. And I'm lying there thinking I'm getting it all right. He's like, what am I touching? I'm like, right side of my big toe. Really, he's on the left side of my big toe. The only thing that really gave it away for me that I was completely wrong was my mother's face. At the time, I remember she was standing with him and she was just like looking at me like, what do you mean you don't know where he's touching you? Like this, no, like she had a look of confusion and just like panic. So that's when I'm lying there and I'm like, okay, this is real. Like this isn't something that I'm just gonna get a pill for and go home. Like this is real life. And as I'm talking about it now, I'm getting kind of like choked up. So I need a minute. I just want to come back and say that the reason why it's taken me so long to do this video is because of how I feel as I tell the story. It's very emotional for me. It's very hard for me to do. The only reason why I'm really putting this out here right now is because at the time when this all happened to me, I had no resources because the kind of MS that I was diagnosed with was so rare. So in disbelief that I woke up one morning with my hand numb and now I'm in the hospital, first of all, lying in a bed, and now you're telling me that I'm paralyzed. So I ended up being paralyzed from the tip of my head on the left side only to the tip of my toe, or to the tip of my toes on my left side. So basically my whole onset presented as if I had had a stroke and only the left side of my body was affected. I remember the doctor came in and he said, it's like someone took a pencil or a pen and drew down the center of your body and said, this side's affected and this side's okay. Also in the morning when I woke up that morning, my left eye decided that it wanted no part of me anymore. It literally was stuck in one spot and would not move. My right eye was completely untouched, completely fine, but I would look at things and this eye would be stuck here. This eye would be moving around only by itself. And then I went blind. So I went blind for about 2 weeks in my left eye. I couldn't see. I could see shadows, but I could not make things out properly in this eye. This eye was doing all the work. I want to say it was either after 2 weeks or the first month that my voice kind of started to do its own thing. My voice started to go and I was still able to speak, but I was speaking so softly and so low. I sounded like a little mouse. Like basically nobody could really understand me or hear me. Oh gosh, okay. I'm trying to calm myself down here. My voice went. Don't cry. My voice went and yeah, my voice went, and with that I kind of felt like my confidence went, and it kind of gave, unfortunately, some people kind of a free pass to treat me the way that they did. I had a few nurses back then that were not the best to me whatsoever during that time and mistreated me immensely. It was already dealt with. My family dealt with it. I couldn't really speak up for myself too much, so my mom was a huge advocate for me during that time. A lot of people spoke up for me, so I'm grateful for that. I basically had lost my voice for maybe like 2 of those months, maybe 3. Within the first 2 weeks, guys, I was unable to walk, unable to dress myself, unable to move, to get up, and unable to do anything, unable to really see, speak properly. My hearing was not affected. My organs, thankfully, were not affected. During that time, I couldn't walk. And if I did walk, it was usually someone coming to pick me up and hold me to put me in a wheelchair. There was no walking. There was no cane. There was no walker. There was no using a wall, nothing. There was just nothing. It was completely assisted and completely depressing. And it lasted like that until pretty much January. Even when I left, I still was not in good shape. I don't have any videos or any pictures of me during my worst times, because at the time my family would ask me and I would say no, I don't want any pictures taken, because that's how bad I was at that time. So unfortunately I can't show you pictures from back then. You kind of just got to take my word for it. I'm moving into my prognosis going forward. Went to go see my doctor, my actual neurologist, for the first time while I was inpatient in the hospital. My first meeting with him was not the best. I mean, at that time they had given me about 5,000, I believe, or maybe more, milligrams of solumedrol, which is a steroid. So within the course of 2 weeks, I went from being about 100 and probably 50 to 60 pounds, which is what I was usually my whole 20s. I'm about 5'6" or 5'7" if I'm being generous on a good day to myself. I went from being about 150 to 160 to ballooning up to about over 200 pounds in the course of about 2 weeks. So you guys can imagine, well, what steroids does to you specifically. My face blew up. I was a balloon. My face was huge. Sorry, there's a fruit fly right here. My face was huge. My stomach was huge. I looked like I was probably like 6 months pregnant at one point out of nowhere. So imagine that as well. What else? My legs got huge. Everything on me just got huge. I got really, really, really big. And again, at that time, I did not want any pictures taken, any videos taken, because I just thought that nothing was going to change. So when I went to go see my doctor, this is the first meeting I'm having with him about my condition. I hadn't talked to anybody except for doctors in the emergency room and other ones that were kind of giving me educated guesses along the way. Anyways, he looked at me on our first initial meeting and said, it's not going to get any better. And you kind of have to get used to being in a wheelchair. Like you're going to be paralyzed, like probably, if not for life, for a long time. For those of you that have MS, you guys already know what lesions typically look like. That is an abnormal lesion. That is not a lesion that's they're not supposed to be that large. Regular MS lesions, for those of you that don't know, are typically about 2 centimeters and smaller, or they can even be up to 3 and smaller. They're not that big. They're like usually little spots, and they're multiples of them. That's why it's called multiple sclerosis. Sclerosis basically just means scars or scar tissue. Multiple forms of scarring in the brain or in the spinal cord. It's a condition that affects the central nervous system. So for me, my initial lesion on my onset, I only had one. It was that large lesion, and because it left me hemiplegic, it took up almost the entire right hemisphere of my brain. So basically, for those of you that don't know as well, the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body and vice versa. So the left side of your brain will control the right side of your body. Complete paralysis. I'm completely hemiplegic. And if you guys want to see what it looks like to be hemiplegic, because I don't have pictures or videos, feel free to go on YouTube and type in hemiplegic patient walking, and you'll get to see exactly what it was like for me. There was no real walking, and when there was walking, it was a complete struggle, and it was always assisted. So that's that in a nutshell, pretty much. So I don't know if you guys know, but when you're in the hospital, typically they will have you get up. If you're going through something, you have to do physio no matter what shape you're in. You have to do occupational therapy if you've been affected in that way, no matter what shape you're in. They still have to try to get you to do things, and because you're not using those parts of your body, someone either has to do things for you to help you use those, which is called passive rehab, Active is when you're doing it yourself. Passive is when someone's assisting you, because if you're still not trying to move or do anything, you're going to become very stiff. You're going to lose muscle mass, which is muscle atrophy, basically. I'm sorry. I'm slurring my words right now. So occasionally, if you guys hear me in my videos in the future and in my previous videos ever slurring my words, now you know why. Okay, so my doctor at the time, I was in the St. Mike's Clinic in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, which is where I'm from, where I live. At the time, my doctor was supposed to be the MS specialist for, I believe, all of North America, not just Canada. Like, he was the top in his field. He was the top in his game. He was writing books and writing papers and setting standards of medicine for MS. He was the guy to go to. Anyways, he's the same doctor that said to me, you're not going to walk. You kind of just got to get comfortable where you are. And that's the disease. That's the condition. Which really, excuse my language, I'm not going to say it, forget it. Here I was, 26 years old, someone who had never been sick her entire life. In the course of 2 weeks to almost a month, I can't remember when I saw him, you have a stranger in front of you that's a doctor that you're looking to for guidance, telling you to just basically give up. And I did. At the time, I really did. I remember I sat in the bathroom down the hallway from his office after that appointment with my mom, and I just cried and cried and cried and cried. We both cried. And at the time, my mom, I remember literally like it was yesterday, like her saying to me, okay, you know what? Like, we did enough crying now. It's up to you. He's your doctor, yes, but just because he's your doctor doesn't mean that he knows everything. He's not the end all, be all, see all, know all of everything, right? He's not God. He's not the universe. He doesn't know. He's not you, more importantly. You write your own story. You're going to be the one to tell yourself what you can and cannot do. I was like, okay, you know what? I get that you have to give me all this optimistic talk, and at the time I was not trying to hear it. I was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, that's true, but whatever. I'm not going to walk. Like, for those of you that are watching that have MS, if you've been told that or you have been told that, you know what kind of pill that is to swallow. So I was told that, and I believed that for a long time. Afterwards, I was in a pretty bleak, dark place. Like, I had a dark outlook on a lot of things. I was pretty depressed. At the time, though, I did have family, friends, and a decent support system. So I was trying to push my way through that for them. And I mean, at one point, there was things that happened in my life that pushed me to say, you know what? There's a lot of things that are happening to me that I can't control, but the one thing that I can control is the fact that I'm now 200 pounds and change, so a good 100 and however many pounds overweight, my normal healthy body weight. I can change that by trying, you know? Like, I can't walk. Sorry, at the time that I came home in January from physio, I was able to start using a cane. Like, I slowly progressed over time from using a cane to a walker and then eventually to nothing. But that took about 4.5 years of physiotherapy. And then one day, literally, I went through some personal things. I was so depressed that I remember sitting there saying, you know what? I can't control anything in my life, but I can control myself. So I ordered a bunch of MS exercise yoga DVDs online from the MS Society, and I started doing those every day. And then I ordered a workout DVD that I started doing every day that I still do to this day. Eventually, I would push myself. I would do the exercises that physio gave me. Once physio was over and I was no longer a patient with them, I would come home and I would do the physio exercises, and I would push them every single day. Even when I couldn't really see a huge increase in my progression, I would still continue. I would say, you know what? I have to keep trying. Otherwise, what's the alternative? Just sitting there and doing nothing? It took a long time. It took months. It took years for me to get to where I am today. I can walk now, obviously unassisted. I'm fine to that extent, but I do have slight issues in terms of my gait when walking. So I don't want to sit here and lie to you and be like, yeah, I cured myself. I'm completely fine now. And I can do all these amazing, incredible things. I cannot run to this day. I can't jog to this day. I'm still working on jumping. I've just only recently been able to actually jump and do some jump squats, some burpees, things like that. And they're not perfect by any means. I'm going to keep trying and I'm going to keep pushing. And I know that eventually I'll be able to come back to you guys and say, hey, guess what? I can do this now. That's pretty much my MS story in a nutshell. Actually, sorry, that's not all it. in terms of treatments and medications, when I first came out of the hospital, they had me on Rebif. So for those of you that have MS, I'm sure you guys have already heard of it, know about it, or even taking it. So I took Rebif for about 4 years until I decided that I wanted to try a natural approach to my recovery. I eventually ended up going vegetarian. I was doing a lot of reading about diet and exercise with MS, and I came across plant-based diets having a positive effect on MS. The ultimate goal was never to be a vegan because I did not think I could ever do that, and I'm a vegan to this day. So I'll insert a picture right here. This was me at a family event. I know I probably don't look, a lot of people tell me that I don't look like they can't see it, but it's definitely me. Take my word for it. I would not put it in here if it wasn't me. I went from that to this picture right here where you guys can kind of see how much smaller I am. I'll insert some progression photos from my weight loss so you guys can kind of see where it started and then kind of where it went to. So where I am now, after being told that I would never walk again, now where I am today is on YouTube, number one. Number two, I went back to school at the time because I did not finish. I went to school late. I went to college late. I had actually gone back to school after all the physiotherapy and occupational therapy, and I took health and fitness and graduated this year for health and fitness promotion with a pretty high GPA that I'm actually really proud of. And I am now a certified personal trainer, not currently in the field as of yet, just because of coronavirus. I will be getting there very shortly. So you guys are going to start to see some more videos, more lifestyle videos coming from me in terms of weight loss and exercise, maybe some diet videos. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys would be interested in those kinds of videos. I can share them with you, no problem. By the way, shout out to my new subscribers. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. I love you all. Thank you so much, you guys. I had been struggling with wanting to tell my story and just not knowing how to do it. And every time I wanted to record another video on a makeup look or something, it just didn't feel right. I want to have the kind of channel where you guys can come and you guys can watch makeup if you want to, but then for those of you that really need it, if you need like motivation or inspiration for something later on, you can come to my channel for that as well. Speaking to my MS family that is watching this, please, 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 please do not discount. Do not discount for 1 minute. Do not discount the impact that diet and exercise can have on your condition. Repetition is helpful. Like, please don't discount that. Please don't discount the power of your own mind. Just because your doctor is telling you something does not always mean it's going to be the outcome. Trust the diagnosis, but don't always trust the prognosis, because the prognosis is up to you. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you being here. And I hope that you guys can stick around for the content that's to come. Put your mind into all the positive right now. Let go of all the negative energy if you can. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Love you guys.